Okay, it's live.
All right, hey everybody, I'm Harrison from Mattermost, and this is our presentation on Mattermod, which is a tool that we use to kind of manage our public Mattermod or public GitHub repos and do some automate some of the tasks around that. So probably, if you're a contributor for Mattermost, you've seen this message at some point. It's whenever someone makes a PR for the first time, Mattermod will ask them to sign a CLA. Just so there's no legal issues around who owns code or the code in the Mattermost project and stuff. You also probably seen, for anything not trivial, you've probably seen this. Mattermod, we use it to automate our setup of, we call them spin mints, but they're just our test servers, just named after the domain that we had around. And you've probably also seen this, which is kind of an artifact of the older version of Mattermod, where it was not very good at always recognizing when we've told it to set up a test server. So yeah, Mattermod is just kind of our tool for managing that sort of stuff. We've had some people ask if it would be open source just for various purposes. It's pretty specialized what we use it for, but just today we've now made it open source, so anyone can use the code if they happen to want it for whatever reason. If they're setting up their own fork of Mattermost and actually want this functionality as well. So yeah, not sure where that line is at the bottom, but whatever. It is kind of a little diagram of the architecture of Mattermod, at least the current version. The original version, basically, kind of for some history, all it had was there was a GitHub webhook that triggered Mattermod to do stuff. GitHub webhooks are unfortunately rather unreliable. So this newer version does some more things that will make it a lot smarter and avoid that behavior that I showed a few lines back where we have to repeatedly add and remove labels to tell it to set up a test server. So it still has the webhook events like before, where basically GitHub will tell it that a pull request, something has happened to it. And it will use those to say a new pull request is open, so it will give the alert that the CLI or the CLA needs to be signed. It will use those events to see hey, a pull request has been labeled with this thing, so post a message or set up a test server. But now, in addition to just the webhook events, it also will go through and poll every once in a while, just so that it can see what the changes are in case it happens to miss one, or the other case is if it has gone offline for a while, because that was also a problem before, is that if Mattermod went down and then it comes back up, it wouldn't know what had changed. Or a copy of the pull request in the database, and when it receives an event from GitHub, it'll check have the labels changed, and if so, it'll kind of imply that it's been labeled. Again, that helps if it's gone down and it misses the actual labeled event from GitHub. It has some interaction with Jenkins as well, where it will, when it's setting up test servers, it kind of watches and waits for Jenkins to finish building. The old version relied on Jenkins actually contacting or hitting an API point from Mattermod, which was unfortunately, it was a pretty good system. It would just, if there was an issue with it hitting that in the first place, Mattermod would sometimes miss that a build had finished, or since it would run out of space because it used to copy builds onto it, but that's kind of beside the point. And then, of course, it contacts AWS, where we host our test servers. It has a script in there that will set up the test server. It will create a domain for it. It will upload Mattermost, and then it'll actually run the Mattermost instance. So yeah, that's kind of, it's just a bunch of communication between all those, kind of coordinate those things I mentioned before. So here, I'll just close this and give you a quick walk around the code. If you've looked at all at our platform repo and looked at the server code, some of this will look very familiar in terms of the folder structure. There's the config folder with the config model, has kind of just some objects we use for errors and the objects that represent issues and pull requests in the database. Has the store, which most of this database code is ripped from the our main repo as well, so it should look very similar if you've seen it. And then the core of it kind of lives in the server directory. It's kind of all the main code that it starts, or it loads up the APIs. It starts the server for like the route that the webhooks hit. It has the whole way it runs every currently 5 minutes. It ticks through and checks all the open pull requests, see if anything's changed with them. It checks through all the open issues, again, sees if anything's changed with them. Yeah, it's the APIs. There's some stuff in here which isn't actually used, but it's kind of an API to get a nice list of all the pull requests and issues, which was somewhat working, but I kind of cut it out because it wasn't worth the time to finish it at this point. So yeah, that's it. And I'll talk briefly about configuring it. So there's two things here. There's the config.json, or well, config mattermod.json. It has a lot of kind of standard options. If you are running this yourself, you'll need to set most of these up because we blanked out the file just to get rid of any private information. But it has like where you're hosting it from, the actual information used to connect with Mattermod, database configuration, the tick rate for how often it pulls GitHub, which is kind of important because we have it watching 6 or 7 repositories right now. And if the tick rate causes it to pull too often, then you hit rate limiting, which we did a couple times. So 5 minutes right now seems pretty good. Theoretically, it shouldn't need this very often because it should get the webhook events, but this is kind of the fallback time. Your list of repositories to watch, who owns it, and the name. So like, or in our case, be Mattermost, and name would be platform. You can have an array of those. Stuff for setting up test servers, CLA, blah, 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 labels, and the credentials for connecting to the different systems. And the other part of configuration, just the test server setup script. We have a pre-configured AWS image, so all the dependencies are installed for us. This just basically needs to hit some address to download the new version of Mattermost, and it just does all the setup to make it open and create some test users and stuff. So yeah, that's about it. There's not anything super important than with the rest of this. But yeah, if you happen to need the code for anything, running your own instance or what have you, or if you'd like to contribute, we could probably work up some, or we could probably create some help wanted issues for community members to mess around with for that. Yep. So if you enjoyed this talk, we try to do them every week on just some technology we use or parts of the code base. And you can get like notifications of those or even talk to us if you go to prerelease.mattermost.com. We have a few channels, developers, contributors, native mobile apps if you're interested in contributing to those. And yeah, thanks for watching.